What's going on, golf fans? It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS core plays for the American Express. Going to bring you 4 of my top picks towards the top of the Draftkings pricing to give you an idea of some of the foundational picks that I'm not only getting to in DFS, but that I've also bet in the outright market. These plays have a lot of upside to not only go out there and make the cut, finish in the top 20, but also that top 5, potentially even winning upside that you're looking for in these GPPs or, of course, in the outright market. Last week was a tough one for our core picks. Keith Mitchell and Sungjae Im did not make the cut, so that ended up really bruising our player pool. But overall, the 6 of 6 percentage was between 4 and 6% last week across the industry, and personally had right around an 11% 6 of 6 rate. I had a lot of my core plays, a lot of my 8 and 9K options really pop off, like a Montgomery. Russell Henley ended up playing well. Siwoo Kim, eventual winner, was also in the player poll. People in the Discord ended up having him as an outright. I wasn't so fortunate myself, but I did end up calling it for the Sunday Showdown stream that Siwoo Kim was the guy that I was backing the most there. So we ended up profiting on Showdown for both. I had 5x on Friday. We also had a really solid day there on Sunday. An overall profitable week from the week-long perspective because of some of those 6 of 6s. But hoping this week to clean it up when it comes to the cut rate, right? We don't want 2 of these 4 picks missing the cut. And given that this week is a little bit more of a ball striking affair, at least from the shots gained perspective, I'm liking our chances to bounce back. So a lot to talk about, these 4 picks. I'm super excited to bring to you. Let's go ahead and get this thing rocking. All right, we'll get started with a look at our key stats to give you an idea of the sort of metrics I'm looking for to identify my top plays. Approach play is always going to be number 1. There's not really a huge difference in terms of your buckets. It's all right about where you'd have them in terms of your averages. That 50 to 125 is always the most utilized. It's the largest range in terms of your buckets, and those middle tier ranges a little bit more utilized than your fringe ones that are 200 yards plus. So everything there is about your average. We do have opportunities gained mixed in here. And I guess we'll mention it, right? It's not just a single golf course. You're dealing with a 3-course rotation. You have the Stadium course, PGA West, their main course, the Pete Dye course, for 2 out of the 4 rounds. Then you have the La Quinta Country Club. And then on the other side, you also have the Jack Nicklaus Tournament course. They're all different. They all have their little niches to them, their little tricks of the trade. Certain courses are going to favor certain players, but overall, you're looking at a scoring fest. The La Quinta course is by far the easiest. You're going to see a lot of, sub 6, 7 under par rounds there. At the Stadium course, it's a Pete Dye special, so you're going to get a lot of difficulty on and around the green there. So it's the most difficult out of the bunch. And then the Nicklaus course, it's not quite the biggest test in terms of your ball striking, but once you get on the greens, kind of similar to the Stadium course, it's a little bit more difficult. But they all have these little differences between them. La Quinta has a little bit more lush rough, but it's also extremely short, a lot of drivable par 4s. The Nicklaus course has a lot of risk-reward holes, a lot of risk-reward iron shots. That course, if you don't have your iron play on top form, you're going to be absolutely screwed. And then the Stadium course, it really is all about around the green. It's, got tiny greens, kind of like a Pebble Beach. You see a lot of your approach shots on some of the more gettable holes will be within like 75 to 50 yards. So you're looking at more of a touch. It's just, they're all a little bit different. So what I'm focusing on here is this combined model, right? We're looking at approach play. That's going to be important for all 3 courses, right? The buckets, again, are pretty flat. That's why I'm doing it that way. But opportunities gained, a way to look at the players that are putting it within 15 feet. Birdie or better percentage, what players are the most aggressive, right? You got to get to 20 to 28 under par. So I'm trying to go after the players that have that sort of makeup in them, that aggressive mindset to go out there and score. In terms of your off the tee play, it's important at all the courses. So it's, again, a relatively flat profile there, right about your average. In terms of shots gained putting, this is a Bermuda course. It's overseeded with a rye. On one of the courses, it's overseeded with a Poetrivolus. So you have Bermuda on all of the different green types, but it's not a true Bermuda grass. So it's definitely not weighed in my model as much as it typically would be. I'm relying a little bit more on their 36-round baseline, also their stats over the last 16 rounds. Around the green play is extremely important around La Quinta with some of those drivable par 4s. A lot of your quote-unquote approach shots are going to be here around the green. Also, at the Stadium course, I've already outlined that you have tiny greens there, so it tends to come into play quite often. Shots gained at Birdie Fest, sand save percentage, shots gained at Desert Golf, and then all of these comp courses down here that I'm looking at are really just good ways to encapsulate this sort of golf. In terms of the comps, I'm looking for ball striking first sort of golf courses, ones that are a little bit more difficult around the green, that have a little bit more undulation to them. I mean, the CJ Cup, has extremely difficult green complexes. Quail Hollow, a ball striking test with difficult green complexes. Scottsdale, another desert style golf course with a similar sort of green setup. Torrey Pines, Accordia Golf and Aracino for the Zozo Championship. That's the sort of stat that I'm relying on, right? Like typically, we have our MO here. We're like, okay, we want accuracy first guys off the tee, or we want bombers at this golf course, or we really want iron specialists. That's not the case when we have this 3-course setup. And, I've done the deep dive into them. I've done course breakdowns on all 3 courses for the last 3 years, so I have this down to a T at this point. There's not really one stat that sticks out from all 3. So our best way to go after this is to go after the sort of guys that can get to 25 to 30 under par, right? Those aggressive players. And a lot of that comes down to, like I said, the opportunities gained, putting yourself to 15 feet, going out there, just your putting in general, right? This is a hybrid surface we don't see very often. So finding specific stats is going to be hard, but who just fills it up in general, right? Over the last 36 rounds. It's more of a fundamental analysis sort of week, course history kind of week, event history sort of week, recent form than any other week on tour. So, guys, I'm always normally about the models and everything like that. A little bit less so this week than most. So let's hop into the plays. Our first core pick is going to be Scottie Scheffler at $10,500. And last week, he finally, actually 2 weeks ago there at the Century Tournament of Champions, ended up going out there and gaining with the putter. We had been waiting that for so long. He gained over 2 strokes with the flat stick at Kapalua. And the ball striking, although it wasn't pristine, especially early on, it was a little bit hairy with the approach play. I'm not worried about that. We knew he was going to be a little bit rusty after coming from an extended break. And now I would assume over the last week or so, he's been practicing, right? He's not just going to put the clubs down again for another 3-4 weeks. I'm sure he was grinding, trying to get his distances down, and he loves this golf course. He played pretty well here last year, or in 2020, he finished in 3rd, top 25 last year. 2021 did end up missing the cut, but the cut line is after 3 days here, and it's a low cut line. It's like 8-9 under par. Sometimes, some of the best players that are up there within like 8-9 shots of the lead are getting cut, which you don't typically see for, a 36-hole cut. So Scottie Scheffler, I'm willing to look past that a little bit, but the shots gained metrics are what make you love him, right? The approach play, the off the tee play are just always going to be popping. But that putter, the one thing that's been holding him back over that longer term sample size, finally flipped there at the Tournament of Champions. So if he found something there, something that he can continue going forward, I mentioned that as soon as Scottie can find that putter, he's going to start rambling off wins. Well, I'm not going to risk that he just falls off once again. If he truly found something there at Kapalua, then you're going to ride that to plenty of wins. It could be like 3-4 wins in a 5-6 event stretch. Of course, that's the ceiling that we're hoping for. It's not, what we're going to expect. I'm going to be taking all of the chances that I can on a Scottie. So pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to be probably my highest exposed play on the slate. And again, somebody I've already bet outright. Next pick I want to touch on here is Will Zalatoris, $9,600. And for Willie Z, last week I expected him to be a lot rustier than he showed. He went out there and really proved me wrong a little bit. The ball striking was a little bit hairy, but he gained on the greens. Overall, it resulted in a top 10 finish, 11th place finish there at the Century Tournament of Champions, which isn't what he was hoping for. I'm sure he had higher expectations, but in terms of the industry sentiment, I don't think we expected him to finish in the top 11 of that 39-player field, particularly with how strong that field was and the back injury that he was recovering from, and the swing looked different. He changed it up. It doesn't look nearly as violent as it was before, so there might be some growing pains with the approach play, but if he rebounds, and that putter looked beautiful last week, he was rolling it well, and he rolled it well before he got hurt as well back there last year. You're looking at a player that's underpriced. I mean, he could easily be $10,000, and I'm not so sure he's going to be mega chalk. Because of those injury concerns, because the ball striking wasn't perfect last week, people might be a little bit hesitant to get to Willie Z. And from the long-term perspective, we know who this guy is. An absolute stud, both off the tee and on approach, if not one of the best players in the world in both of those categories. And of late has fixed the putter. Like before he got hurt, guys, he was on track to be top 5 player in the world. Like his metrics, all the advanced analytics were just pointing to him skyrocketing up those official World Golf rankings. And if the swing can get back to what it was, which is a huge question mark, we don't know if that's going to happen, then he's severely underpriced and probably going to be under-owned this week. So it's a little bit speculative. It's not the safest pick on the board, but given that he was able to finish, again, in the top 25th percentile, or actually almost the top 25th percentile last week, you got to like his chances, and you got to think that that's a good sign of things to come. Next up, we've got Cameron Young. And I have to say this about Willie Z. His event history is good. He ended up finishing in a top 10 last year. He had a 6th placed finish. Same thing with, we already talked about Scottie had the top 5 finish back there in 2020. At this event, you're going to shoot 22 under par to even get into the top 10. So you got to like that, their ability to go low at this golf course in the past. They've done it in the past. They can certainly do it again. Cameron Young, another one of those young, aggressive players. So Willie Z, if you look at opportunities gained, is top 5 in this field. Scottie Scheffler is number 1 in this field when it comes to that. And over that super long sample size, Cameron Young's another top 5 player in opportunities gained. Hyper aggressive players that are always taking aim at pins. All 3 of those players are also top 5 in birdie or better percentage. Opportunities gained and birdie or better percentage are highly correlated with each other, as you would expect, right? The more opportunities they have, the more birdies you're likely to get, especially when you're a top tier player, a pretty good putter like all of these guys are. And Cam Young, he played here last year. He just made the cut. He didn't do anything special. So if you're looking for like event history, he's only has the 1 year sample size. So he did make the cut. That's good to see. But the recent form for Cam Young is what you have to like. 13th, 3rd, 23rd, right? He didn't play that much over the fall. He didn't need to. I think he's pretty confident with the state of his game. His standing getting into East Lake. I don't think he's worried about all that. All that much. $9,100. I'm hoping that he comes in a little bit lower round, right? Last time out, 13th at the Tournament of Champions, kind of like a Willie Z. That wasn't really special, right? A 13th in other fields you'd feel pretty good about, but it was only a 39-player field. I like the birdie percentage. I like the opportunities gained metrics with a Cam Young. Off the tee, he's checking a lot of those boxes. And believe it or not, around the green, Cam Young's a lot better than people give him credit for, right? Willie Z, not the best. You can see Scottie Scheffler, he's not a lead around the green, right? He's a gainer there. You go down here to a Cameron Young. Where are you at, Cam Young? He's gaining as well. And I've seen him before in the past. He's had better stretches in terms of his form, where he's gaining closer to like a third or even half a stroke per round around the green. I think that's a really underrated part of his game. I think it's why he's already at an elite level at such a young age. And it all comes down to the putter. Now, he's got to go out there and he's got to find a way to gain on these greens. And while that's not a given prospect, because of the shaky performance at the Tournament of Champions, I'm going to hope that he's 20% owned, something in that range where it's reasonable to try and get leverage to him. Kind of like Willie Z, I'm kind of hoping that he's probably right around 20% owned at the very most. Those sort of numbers in terms of ownership, I'd be more than willing to get that leverage there. Same thing with Scottie, but somebody I'm not worried about ownership with, he will not be chalky this week, is Sahith Theegala, and he arguably brings just as much upside to the table as the other players here in terms of top 5, perhaps even win equity, because of how many times this guy's getting himself into contention up there, just with second place finish after second place finish. But Sahith Theegala, this guy's a madman. You can see he only has a 47% cut rate, so an extremely low floor, but we know the upside. This kid's a stud. You look at his shots gained metrics, they're not going to give you the whole story. You can see he's losing off the tee, even though he's long off the tee. He's a gainer in all the other 3 categories, but only a slight gainer. His shots gained profile, if you take a look at it from event to event, is just extremely inconsistent. He goes out there, he's gaining a bunch of strokes on approach on one event, like 5-6 strokes. The next, losing 4 or 5. One event, it's him going out there and gaining a bunch with the putter. The next, he's hemorrhaging a bunch with the putter. He just has to time it up correctly. But when Sahith Theegala does, he brings you that top-end upside. You take a look at the event history here. He did make the cut, finished 33rd last year. You take a look at the recent form. It hasn't been all that great, but it hasn't been horrible either, right? A 33rd at the Tournament of Champions, that's what brings the shots gained down a lot. Again, that was 33rd out of 38 players, so that's not the best performance, but second at the RSM Classic, 22nd, 67th. So don't let your recent form really draw you off too much, right? That one bad performance at the Tournament of Champions really hurts Sahith Theegala here. Outside of that, if he had the top 5 finish, he's flashed of late. He's been making a lot more cuts than he did towards the beginning of last year. I think he's just becoming a better player, kind of growing into his true skill set and his potential. He's going to be royally under-owned. People aren't going to be willing to take the plunge. Now, he's not going to be a pivot play. He's not going to be as low owned as some of the other plays in this range. Like, I think an Adam Hadwin's going to be super low owned. Let's see. Putnam's probably going to be like right around the same ownership level as a Sahith Theegala. And in terms of your winning upside, or especially that top 5 upside, Theegala brings a lot more equity to the table than anyone else in this range. And especially when you're considering ownership, but he's not going to be the super chalk of this range. You got to love my boy Sahith. All right, fellas, that is all I've got for the DFS core plays. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and comment down below who you've got winning this week. The rule is they can't be a 10K range golfer. So personally, I'm going to take Zalatoris. We'll go with Sahith Theegala as well on that list. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any of the content in the future. Tomorrow morning, I'll have my DFS value picks dropping, going over some of my top plays towards the bottom of the pricing board to help you save some salary. We'll have our DFS live stream on Wednesday evening. That's always at 7 p.m. Eastern time, where we go over the weather, the chalk, all of your live questions, prize picks, cash plays, whatever you guys want to talk about to get ready. And you don't want to miss any of that. So make sure you are subscribed. Make sure you smash that like button. Goes a long way with helping get the word out there about the channel. And I appreciate it, guys. Appreciate the support. You guys stopping by, consuming the content. Hopefully it can be a profitable and perhaps a really fun week out there. I'm expecting a lot of birdies, a real top end field in terms of your talent, which always makes for an entertaining week. Best of luck, everybody, whether you're playing DFS, over there betting outrights or on prize picks, and let's get this cash, fellas.